Penguin Audio presents A Conspiracy of Faith by Jussi Adler-Olsen, read by Graeme Malcolm. Dedicated to my son, Case. Prologue. It was the third morning, and the smell of tar and seaweed had got into his clothes. Under the boathouse floor, the mush of ice lapped soundlessly against the wooden stilts and awakened memories of days when everything had been all right. He lifted his upper body from the bedding of waste paper and pulled himself sufficiently upright to make out his younger brother's face, which, even in sleep, seemed tormented, chilled to the bone. Soon he would wake and glance around in panic. He would feel the leather straps tight on his wrists and waist and hear the jangle of the chain that constrained him. He would see the snowstorm and the light as it struggled to penetrate the tarred timber planks. And then he would start to pray. Countless times he'd seen desperation in his brother's eyes. Through the gaffer tape that covered his mouth came the repeated sound of his muffled pleas that Jehovah have mercy upon them. Yet both of them knew that Jehovah no longer paid heed, for blood had passed their lips, blood that their jailer had let drip into their cups, the cups from which he had allowed them to drink before revealing to them what they had contained. They had drunk water, but in the water was blood, so forbidden, and now they were damned forever. And for that reason, shame pierced deeper even than thirst. "What do you think he'll do to us?" his brother's frightened eyes seemed to ask, but how could he ever know the answer? All he knew, instinctively, was that it would all soon be over. He leaned back and scanned the room once again in the dim light, allowing his gaze to pass across the collar beams and through the formations of cobwebs, noting each and every projection, each and every knot, the worn paddles and oars that hung from the apex of the ceiling, the rotten fishing nets that had long since made their last catch. And then he discovered the bottle. A gleam of sunlight played momentarily on the blue-white glass to dazzle him. So near, and yet so hard to reach, it was just behind him, wedged between the thick, rough-hewn planks of the floor. He stuck his fingers through the gap and tried to prise the bottle upward by the neck, but the air froze upon his skin. When the thing came loose, he would smash it, and use the shards to cut through the strap that kept his hands tied tight together behind his back. And when it succumbed, his numb fingers would find the buckle at his spine. He would loosen it, tear the tape from his mouth, remove the straps from around his waist and thighs, and as soon as the chain that was fastened to the leather strap at his waist no longer held him back, he would lunge forward and free his brother. He would draw him toward him and hold him tight until their bodies ceased to tremble. Then, he imagined, he would use all his strength to gouge into the timber around the door with the broken glass. He would see if he could hollow out the planks to which the hinges were fixed, and if the worst should happen, and the car came before he was finished, he would lie in wait for the man. He would stand poised behind the door with the broken glass in his hand. That was what he told himself he would do. He leaned forward, folded his freezing fingers behind his back, and prayed for forgiveness for his wicked thought. Then he scraped again in the space between the planks to try to free the bottle. He scraped and scratched until the neck angled enough for him to grab hold of it. He listened. Was that an engine? Yes, it was, the powerful engine of a large car. But was it approaching or simply passing by in the distance out there? For a moment the low, deep sound seemed to get louder. He began to pull so desperately at the neck of the bottle that his knuckles cracked audibly. But then the sound died away. Had it been the wind turbines, rumbling and whirring? Maybe it was something else entirely. He had no idea. He expelled warm breath from his nostrils. It steamed the air around his face.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?